Great, let's do it. So thanks to everyone who's joined today. I know in this current landscape, there are a lot of webinars and a lot of things taking up your time. So appreciate you jumping in for this. As you know, this is Media Temples hosting the new pitch process. Huge thanks to you guys for attending. Huge thanks to Media Temple for their continued support of creative and agency communities. They've always done a great job of supporting us on that front. And they continue that throughout the pandemic and bring knowledge and good panels to you guys. So in our last panel, we discussed planning for the rebound. A really good one. If you haven't seen that, go back and check out the clips on that. But one of the hottest topics coming out of that was, great, we know things need to change. We know the landscape's evolving, but how am I going to win new business? So we decided to put together a panel, some really strong folks that I've been fortunate enough to work with in the past, and spend some time talking about that today. Squarely around what does that new pitch process look like? What are the tools, the people, the collaboration, kind of what's good, what's bad, what's going to stick moving forward, and I want to cover that with you guys today. So first of all, we'll just kind of go around the screen and would love for our panelists to just give a quick overview of their name, their title, and where they've been, and some of the things they're working on these days. So just based on my screen, can I start with you, Charles?
Great. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So Charles Duncan, I'm the VP of Engineering at a company called Elephant, based out of New York, with offices also in San Francisco and Los Angeles. In my role, I oversee the engineering teams as well as the product management teams. And at Elephant, initially our founder story, we were created to serve our relationship with Apple, but we work with a multitude of other clients out there. Most recently, work that we have seen of ours for some global ad campaign for Yahoo around their new brand, as well as the redesign of the Beats by Dre website, helping Beats connect with their customers in a more intimate, content-driven way. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm just going to go clockwise. Kingsley, that puts you up.
Sounds good. Hi, my name's Kingsley Taylor. I'm the Managing Director of Digitas on the West Coast across our 3 offices here, San Francisco, Seattle, and Los Angeles. Digitas as a business kind of represents, I guess, the intersection of media, creative, and experience design, and subsequently the sort of client engagements we have are reflective of that. And we have a pretty diverse mix of clients on the West Coast. Just to shout out a couple: T-Mobile, Sephora, Monster Energy, Ulticore. We work with Stars, HPE. And just to kind of touch on new business here, given that's today's topic, I tend to find that my role is really very early on in prospect management. And then subsequently, when it comes to actual pitches, it's really as an executive sponsor, helping to drive the casting and helping to drive guidance for the clients during the process. So that's me.
Perfect. Thanks, Kingsley. And Lee's up next. I had the pleasure of working with Lee at Leo Burnett in Chicago, so glad we were able to have her join today.
Hi, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I guess I have had the pleasure of seeing new business from both sides of the fence, in that I led the new business team at Leo Burnett Chicago from 2015 to almost 2017. And then I just transitioned back into account management, where I now participate as part of a pitch team, and I'm actually doing that right now. In terms of clients, I currently work on Molson Coors, and maybe you've seen one of the most recent things we did. Actually, we worked with Digitas as a partner. We did a Zoom clone machine for Coors Light, where people could effectively record themselves and then put a video in their Zoom call so they could go have a beer, which we're not going to do that today, but you could. And I guess from a new business perspective, yeah, we're kind of, certainly from Leo Burnett's perspective, our pipeline is full. Where Katie Newman is our current CMO. She's doing a fantastic job in terms of kind of keeping those kind of opportunities coming in for the agency. And I'm part of the team on a rather large RFI response at the moment.
Thanks, Lee. For the folks that are joining, I continue to see some folks come in. Thank you for joining. Definitely, we're focusing on new pitch process today. If you didn't notice from the intros, we have a great mix. We have, Charles coming from the technology and the product side of things. Kingsley, I'm sorry, I'm shaping my screen. We have Kingsley coming from definitely the media and the customer experience side, and then Lee coming from an integrated agency side. So I'm hoping that through those three lenses, we're able to address maybe some of the questions or areas of opportunity that you guys are looking for today. So with that, Lee, you kind of made the perfect segue into what funnels are looking like. So we know on the integrated side that you guys are doing a really good job. Katie's doing a great job keeping that full. Charles, on your side, are you still seeing a decent stream of RFPs coming in? We know that so many brands are looking for digital experiences or products to be built during this current time. So what's that look like for you guys at Elephant?
Yeah, the stream is maintained healthy, but we are in uncertain times, and now it's not the time to sort of sit back and be comfortable, really confident around like current future opportunities. So definitely looking how we can add value to new clients, but also existing clients whose businesses may have been somehow disrupted, altered, need to transform during the COVID times. Like, retail clients that finding ways to connect with consumers, commerce clients that maybe the commerce solution wasn't as fitting their needs as possible. So definitely seeing opportunities around there, and you just want to stay hungry, want to stay aggressive, run the business funnel.
Perfect. Thanks. And Kingsley, how about on your side? What's the funnel look like? And then, if the funnel is healthy, what do you think it is that's driving the brands that are starting to look for new agency partners?
So it's an interesting question. I was convinced that this pandemic would have a massive detrimental effect on new business and the pipeline would dry up. And absolutely on the West Coast, we've had a couple of really nice, chunky pitch assignments that haven't gone away, but they've gone on pause. But if I look at the statistics as Digitas as a whole, last year, Digitas participated in 59 pitches across North America. We're now in July, and Digitas has got 52 active or completed pitches with a win rate of 75%. So something has changed out in the marketplace to give us a lot more opportunity. And I think what's interesting is the mix of those opportunities has changed. So back last year and prior, a lot of the pitches were big network, what I'd call whales of opportunities, where you're pulling in lots of different agency partners to achieve the right solution. And now I think there are a lot more integrated opportunities where they're looking for one agency that can deliver the media, the creative, the experience, and that just so happens to be where Digitas' sweet spot is. So maybe we're just moving into a time that for us as an agency is more appropriate, and we're seeing the benefit of that.
No, it's interesting, and I appreciate that you guys are all unknowingly doing my job for me with segues, because I'm going to take that and then I'm going to bounce down to Lee. So Lee, in the new pitch process and kind of where we are today, is, Kingsley said, they're not looking for maybe a network solution, looking for more integrated. One of the questions I had was, in this new pitch process, do you see the number of agencies competing, is that shrinking because clients only want to bring trusted partners to the table? Or do you see that number of competing agencies scaling up because maybe they have the bandwidth now, it's easier for them virtually to work across more agencies?
That's a great question. And I think it entirely really depends on the size of the opportunity. But I think in general, I think clients are far more aware of kind of agency propositions. So they're very choiceful who they invite to participate. I think more so, and gone are the days of the initial round is 16 agencies and then they cut to 8 and then they cut to 3. I feel like the first round is far more choiceful. Mm-hmm. And I think the expectation, back to Kingsley's point, is no matter which agency they approach, it's the agency's responsibility to alleviate any complexity to draw on those resources within their network. So if we need data expertise, we have Epsilon in our wheelhouse. If we maybe want to collaborate with Digitas, I feel it's become far easier, and these kind of political walls have dropped between agencies. And I feel that clients really benefit from that now, certainly as part of a new business pitch anyway.
That's good to hear. So following on your, about the proposition from the different agencies, there's some folks, plenty of folks on here listening on the call that aren't part of holding companies. Do you think, what's the value of those agencies still continuing to pursue relationships with, search consultants and folks like that? So if they want to become, if they want to be invited to this now tighter group than ever for these pitches, how are they going to get that proposition in front of clients?
Oh, is that for me?
Jump ball. Anyway.
It's like, from my point of view, I've worked in independents and I've worked in network agencies, and I've had the pleasure of WPP, Omnicom, and Publicis Group. So I can kind of talk to networks and independents. And I think for search consultants, obviously there's a scale proposition that they tend to attach themselves to. So it's bigger clients who either don't have the time or have the market knowledge and kind of want somebody to do that legwork for them. And obviously consultants charge a fee. So it has to make financial sense from an agency perspective to pay that fee to the search consultant to be one of the agencies on their roster that they would potentially recommend. Again, though, I think having been part of smaller independent agencies, there's a consistent hunger there, and new business is everyone's responsibility. And sometimes in larger agencies, there's a misconception that new business should only be done by a certain team or a certain group of people. And I personally disagree with that. I think they can be experts in that subject matter, but new business is really up to everybody to have eyes, ears, and relationships kind of on tap constantly to bring that new business in.
I think just to jump on that, relationship is a really important word here, right? We're in the service industry fundamentally. And I think, there are many different types of clients, both from a business perspective and a personal perspective. And subsequently, there need to be many different types of agency to fit them and their needs and their personalities and their expectations. And it's not really a one size fit all. A network may contain a number of different sub-brands, but it doesn't necessarily mean that those sub-brands are right for a particular client. And sometimes a client might be looking for a different energy or passion or talent set or culture that is found within an independent agency. I mean, Josh, we worked at David and Goliath together several years ago. And, David Angelo, the founder, had a particular culture that he built within the company that produced a particular type of creative work, brave creative work. And that's specifically what his clients were looking for. You might not necessarily find that in another agency. So I think there's still very much a role for all the different types, because there are so many different types of clients. I just think it's very important for an agency to land on what its culture and its personality and its unique differentiation is. Because if you try and be all things to all people, you're not going to succeed. You have to have something that marks you out as different and something that makes you viable. I think that's the key here.
Another thing to add is this spirit of partnerships. I think, like the rest of us, I've worked in Publicis, WPP, now IPG. I've also worked for fierce independents. And, sometimes you have the luxury of scale and partnership across a wide swath of agencies. And other times it's just you. No matter what, the spirit of the partnership, finding partner companies, in my case, frequently it's maybe on the technology side. I have a phenomenal technology team at Elephant, but there's still technical expertise that I need to lean on with other organizations. Maybe that's for scale, maybe that's for a particular skill set, maybe it's experience within the particular brand vertical. but that partnership, and if you're able to sort of have that partnership, build it over a couple of opportunities, just helps strengthen your overall business positioning.
No, I think that's a great point, especially, I mean, not that at all levels you can have great partners, but in particular, if you're a smaller agency or you're an independent agency just trying to get up and going. You know, I myself had a call earlier today with a complementary agency that we're going to partner with on a pitch. So, I mean, I think it's always about finding opportunities and seeing how you can get to the table. So with that, I have one more question before we've now got ourselves into the pitch. And the next question I have is the pitch brief. So, you know, in the past, a client would typically send a pretty prescriptive pitch brief. They wanted you to focus on a campaign, a product launch. You know, 2020 or 2021 is going to look like this for us. You know, we're expanding retail locations, whatever that might be. Have you found that the briefs are still very prescriptive, or are they more coming to you as a partner saying, help us find the solution for our way forward? Like, we still have this business problem, but we're more open-minded to what you come back to us with on a solution. And again, I'll leave that as a jump ball.
I haven't found the kind of template or approach to a pitch has necessarily changed from a client perspective. I think it's more how we respond to that pitch that has changed. And there have been a number of different dynamics that we've had to tweak in order to accommodate, you know, video conferencing. So casting, making sure that you've got strong dynamic people on video conferencing, you know, like strong and silent types needn't apply here. Simplicity, you know, agencies, we often kind of disappear up our backsides when it comes to complex, mechanics and approaches. And really, when you're presenting on Zoom, you have to make things simple and kind of lean more into storytelling rather than going through, you know, number of different charts and slides, because you don't have the ability to articulate them easily face to face. So I think that's been more the change for us. I've seen. I haven't seen a real change in the ask and the brief, but definitely in the way that we have to react.
Yeah, I'd echo that. It's how we need to prepare has been the biggest change. You know, I actually love the idea of having a team in a room for a couple of hours, sort of hashing away at how to craft a brief, how to come up with a solution, but that takes on a totally different energy when your teams are across time zones and it's all over Zoom or Hangouts and you're trying to craft that. Obviously, it's easier if there's a portion of what you're presenting that you had to show before, maybe it's case study, but there's always a unique element that you have to come to the table with any new opportunity. And just sort of hashing that out and getting everyone fully in sync is something that requires exponential more effort that we're all remote. And also presenting to people who aren't going to be in the same rooms, clients, being able to read them, you know. Some people have video on, some people have video off, you know, like everyone has their different cultures, you know, when you're reaching with clients. But those are probably the biggest changes for me that I've been seeing.
I think from again, just kind of what I'm observing as part of a current pitch and also some other experiences, I find that because we're all living in this world of Zoom and online, there's an expected brevity to the response now, potentially, than there was before, because people particularly don't want to have to sit through staring at a screen, a 250 slide presentation, because who wants that? So I think agencies are forcing themselves to be far more choiceful, and also certainly in a first stage RFI response, I think gone are the days where everyone feels like compelled to respond with creative work immediately. Nobody ever gets good creative work rushing kind of in a 2-week period under pressure with no kind of opportunity to talk to clients or kind of ask the right questions. So I kind of feel like the creative piece of a pitch is now being moved further back in the process rather than an initial ask. It's far more kind of strategically, how do you think? Or potentially, what model would you give us to operate the business? So they kind of want to understand the people and the mechanics and the culture. And then the creative piece seems to be coming, it's not less important, but it's just moved rather than an initial piece of a response.
That's interesting. So, we all know that during the pitch process, the Kim check meetings are obviously typically, they're critical. You're sitting in a room, you're getting a vibe from each other. They want to know your approach. They want to know you're smart. They want to know, is this someone I want to work with for the next hour long? Do you feel that human side of it is there more of a block there, or because we're living in this world where we're all looking at each other's homes, does it make it a bit easier to build that connection?
I think what's interesting is, what you read in a pitch brief isn't always the reason that a client is looking for a new agency. And I think what's really important for us to do these days, given the limitations of Zoom, is listen a lot more acutely than we've ever done before. Because when you have a relationship with a person, a client, right, and you get to meet them in chemistry meetings and you get to have a dinner or grab a cup of coffee, you can learn a lot more and more and more about what they're actually looking for and why they're looking to change the agency. And if you just respond to that brief and you take a very rational approach, you might miss the mark. And it's something that, we did recently. We responded to a pitch we thought in a perfect way. We'd hit all the points. We delivered everything this client needed, and we didn't even make it through to the second round. I was really scratching my head as to why. And I think it's that if we listened more closely to what they're actually looking for, there'd be a subtle twist and a nuance to how we responded that we just missed by taking the brief at face value. So that's one learning I would definitely take in this time is really listen, ask questions, get to know people. Very important.
I find that certainly from an existing relationship point of view, take this screen just for an example. I know that Josh likes to play guitar. I know Charles has a large music collection. I'm trying to really see the photographs on the wall behind Kingsley, but my eyesight is not that good. But my point being is that you are almost actually in people's worlds far more than you ever were in a boardroom or around a table. And I find that there's almost a more transparent human warmth to the conversation, certainly that I'm having with clients, like existing clients on a day-to-day basis. I'm sure those of us with children or pets or kind of significant others, inevitably someone will crash the Zoom call. And I feel like people are far more forgiving of those kind of human interactions in life just happening than kind of a sterile situation where you're around a boardroom and I would never know that Charles has an extensive music collection or that Josh may be a master of guitar, because I would never think to ask in that business kind of setting. But I find there's an intimacy in working this way, which seems like an odd thing to say, but certainly that's been my experience.
I think that's great, and especially through the lens of new business, where there's typically this very the line is drawn in the sand that you can't talk to the client, or you can between this hour and this hour on that day, and if you don't have questions submitted, whatever. Have you seen a more flexible new business process, and is that something that you think if again, and all agencies, but trying to give a leg up for some of these independents or smaller agencies starting out, should they be a little bit more aggressive in their approach? Should they be reaching out to the client beyond those windows of time, just trying to build a relationship and get more information and get their foot in the door? Kingsley?
I was going to say, I don't know whether I'm the one who's missing out on this more personal kind of experience with Zoom, but really the pitches we've been involved in have been very rigid, very time orientated, boxed to certain, check-in points. We have tried to build relationships kind of around the edges outside of that rigid structure. And, we've had reasonable responses, but, people still want you to be empathetic to them and their situation. And, they've got lots of other agencies to manage during the pitch process. They've got their home life to manage. They've got their existing work life, and they don't necessarily need the added pressure from you kind of trying to get more airtime. So like I've said, I found that actually this process has had something missing in it, and it's that opportunity to spend that extra time, that coffee, to kind of get to know people. But I do see your point. You do get a glimpse into people's worlds and, you know, their family and their environments and kind of things like that. But within day-to-day client relationships, I think it's drawn us more closely. But in pitch relationships, not necessarily. I personally have found we've still been stuck to kind of rigid kind of gatings and things.
Josh, to your point of advice to small agencies, I think it's just really important to do whatever that agency and that team feels comfortable with. I think the overall situation of pitching during these times, pitching remotely, Zoom calls, is innately a little bit uncomfortable. So really finding what works for your team, what's the presentation style, what's the setting, because there's transparency. Obviously, you're seeing your clients' home spaces, your home spaces are being shown. Just trying to find out what clicks, because at the end of the day, really it's about how are you convincing a client that you have the expertise, experience to solve their business problem, whatever that might be, right? And hopefully you have experience, you can crack it, and versus kind of having to like reinvent the wheel for them. But I just think it's important to go with what you feel most comfortable, go with what you know, and just plow that path forward. Because at some point, we're going to start pitching where some of us will be in the office, some of us will still be at home. It'll be a bit of a mixed situation at hand.
I think that's a good point, Charles. I think, you know, one comment out of that is to say just try stuff, just see what works with the audience. Like we ran a workshop recently where normally you would have you know, whiteboard exercises that you draw up kind of notes up on the wall, and obviously in the virtual space you have to use tools like Mural to do that. And I wondered why no one was participating, and it was because of this fear of people being shown up in front of others that their drawing skills weren't very good. So you've got to kind of dive on the sword yourself and start off and show that your drawing skills suck so that everyone else can pile in. But at least we tried it, you know, and we realized it didn't work. So I think experimenting with stuff is a really good idea. Yeah. You know, like to start off with, the beginning of this pandemic, everyone was all about happy hour Zoom cocktails. Well, I don't know about you guys, but they've kind of gone away. I think they were fun to start with, and now not so much. So just, you know, just try stuff out.
Great. So I think it's, you guys continue to help me with the segues. So if we're trying stuff out and just like that. So, you know, we are trying things out, and I think there are new platforms that people are going to be continuing to experiment with and test. And I think, you know, I think the client relationships will continue to evolve. You know, are we going back to work? Are we not going back to work? But if we look at the pitch process, and even within the pitch process, because that's just high level, I mean, you're still talking about collaboration. You're still talking about presenting and all these elements that live within the pitch process. Do you think we're doing a good job of truly evolving, and some of those tactics will stick around, or do you think we'll drift back? Like, which elements of this evolution do you think stay with us and are just the new normal? Anyone?
There are elements I hope we keep, and then there are parts I hope we return to. I think what this whole thing has proved is that people can still be as collaborative and as creative no matter where they are. That said, I think the nature of creative agencies is, back to a point Charles made, is that people crave kind of human contact and the ability to sit in a room with people and jam and get to ideas, talk about strategy. That said, I think everyone has had to evolve. If you've not evolved the way that you're pitching, I'm surprised you're still being asked to pitch, because the world is an entirely kind of different backdrop than it was 4 or 5 months ago. And I think people have done a pretty good job, certainly I think from a Burnett and Publicis perspective, we've evolved very quickly out of necessity, and I think a lot of people were in that position. I think if you'd asked agencies to do it, we'd probably still be sitting here debating whether it was Teams, Zoom, whatever. But because we had to do it, I think people have done a pretty good job of kind of just evolving the way they work and the way their agency works as well.
Two thoughts on that as well. 2 C's, convenience and collaboration. So I think that the lines between work life and family life have really blurred because of technology now. And it's given us a convenience that we enjoy, you know, so we don't have to commute into the city anymore for hours on end, which I think should continue. It does give us more chance to spend with our families and at home and doing hobbies and things like that. So I think convenience is something that I'd like to see staying, and an acceptance of these tools. But another thing, and I think, Leigh, you said this earlier, these tools have allowed us to collaborate a lot more than we ever have. And in the past, I typically found myself pulling upon teams of people just on the West Coast in Digitas. And now for our clients, we have teams that are made up of people in Boston, Detroit, Chicago, Seattle, LA, and they all work as one team and they all get on. And we have a great experience, and our clients have a great experience. So I'd love to see that happen more as well, like the cutting down of those barriers. And again, if we're looking through the lens of independent agencies, Josh, you spelt this out. This is like independent agencies collaborating, offering different services for one client.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, you know, from my perspective too, the thing that I think will hopefully stick, at least I've seen in my world, is a willingness to be much more kind of iterative. You know, if I think of, you know, Lee, our days at 35 West Wacker, and you're getting ready for a meeting, even if it's a run through, you might spend a full day just getting ready for a run through. So you've burned a lot of time. And I think now through tools, people are much more willing to say, here's my work in progress. And, and just, you know, just share that as it is. It doesn't have to be polished. Get feedback on it and just kind of quickly and rapidly kind of evolve that thing. So you can get to a solution and a really nice product much faster. That's my part of it. Anything else? I mean, do you think that clients moving forward, are they going to see, or agencies going to see, that through the speed or through the savings of not traveling, things like that, are those reasons? Do you think we go back to traveling, or do you think remote pitching becomes more of a norm? And I don't know when this is. This might be 2 years from now. I have no idea.
I think we'd have to assume that there will be some sort of new norm, just like after September 11th, flying on a plane was never the same to security. So if agencies are proving success and being able to pitch remotely, you know, brands seeing that, hey, you know, we really have to take up an hour of my time for this presentation versus the planning session, that elements of this we're going through now will be adopted in the future. So I think it's important for agencies to think really hard about what we want to adopt for the future, because historically there are lots of elements to our industry that are extremely archaic and unchanged, and the last couple of months has forced us to change. So I think some of the agencies that can adopt to the new norm, adopt new models, and build that into the regular working model will prove success over the next few years.
I personally, I love being in the room when the creatives tell you the story, take you on the journey. It's magical if they do it properly. And I think that's sometimes lost, certainly from a creative perspective, over technology. That said, I think agencies have to adopt, but also be adept at both, because some clients may prefer in person, some clients may want to move to this model completely. So I don't think it should be a choice. I think what we've learned is we have to be far more flexible in how we take ourselves to market, whether it's remotely or whether it's in person. And I think the skill set of being able to engage and present over technology in this format shouldn't be forgotten or lost if and when this is over. I think it should be something we should continue to do, certainly for existing client relationships, because gone are the days probably where the entire client team has to take a flight to Denver for a 2-hour meeting. That just makes no sense like, how can we even justify that as an agency? And unless the client specifically requests, but I think we'll go back to a combination, and it's about making sure we retain the skills to be good at both.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a bit of a hybrid. I certainly think that, you know, back in the day when you pick up the phone to a client, I think you're going to be video conferencing a lot more. I think people have a comfort, to your point, for being on camera that they never had before. And actually, I don't know about you, but I generally get more achieved on a video call than over the phone for some reason. Probably because you're picking up different cues and signals that you didn't normally. So yeah, I think it's going to be a hybrid. I don't think we're going to go back to the way we were. I think people have tried something new, and I think they like it, and I think it works for them, generally speaking. I'm sure there will be some business travel that will come back, because to everybody's point, there is still something innately special about presenting and being in person and getting to know people. But it certainly doesn't mean that you have to have your status meeting in person every single week. It could be every quarter, for argument's sake.
You know, I think about the pitch team that thinks we're doing a video conference presentation on a Thursday, and then on Tuesday that turns into a in-person multi-hour flight travel, and you like lose a day. Like, having to have that flexibility baked into your overall timeline, which is already tight from the very, very beginning, will be necessary in terms of adapting in the future.
No, I appreciate it. Well, we're pushing it next to time, folks. As we wind down, if there are any last questions from the audience, please send those over, and we'll try to address those before we take off. But I think we've covered a lot. I mean, you know, we've talked about, I think in general, what the industry looks like from a pitch perspective, what the deal funnels look like for a variety of, you know, whether it's media, digital product, or integrated. So I think we covered off on that. We covered off on, you know, who clients are bringing to the table and why, what that briefing looks like getting into the process, and then how teams are collaborating to come up with the solution, and then ultimately serving that solution back to the clients themselves during the pitch process. And it's good to have 3 people that have been winning deals. So we know there's an optimistic place out there and a positive place for all of us. So, you know, congrats to you guys. And, you know, if nothing else, I want to thank everyone one more time for attending. Again, I know there are a lot of options and opportunities out there with webinars right now. Really appreciate Media Temple continuing to support the creative and the agency industries and communities, and for giving us this opportunity to share this information with you guys. So please reach out after this for any other kind of follow-ups, and we'll do our best to get back to you. We're good.
Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.